Welcome to this episode of Applied Christianity. We're talking with young adults about everyday issues, temptations, and battles they're having. We try to find biblical solutions and examples to apply to these issues. At Applied Christianity, we want to do more than provide generic guidance. We want to equip you with tactics enabling you to see real progress. The war is much larger than people realize. The enemy is way too crafty to only fight him on Sunday. Spiritual, flesh, and worldly temptations are coming at us 24/7. Doesn't it make sense that you need more than a Sunday service to combat them? We're in it with you, alongside of you, and for you. So let's dive right in. Hey, Tucker, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Good deal. So what's been going on lately?
I just finished up playing 2 years of college basketball in Illinois, and now I'm back home working for the family business. And, it's going pretty good. Just finished up my first full summer back doing that.
So you like being out of school, not playing basketball, working, or would you rather be back in school playing basketball and working?
I definitely miss playing basketball, but I don't miss school at all. And I like making money. I think, when I was at school for 2 years, I just, it broke a lot. So I like having money.
So what position did you play in basketball?
Small forward and power forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of went back and forth, whatever they needed.
Full scholarship? Partial scholarship? Oh,
full
nice.
scholarship for 2 years, yeah.
So the high school, superstar in high school, state tournament, anything like that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was pretty good in high school.
Yeah.
Me and my brother played together. We went to the state tournament my junior year.
Nice.
So that was fun. It was good. I liked playing in high school. It was fun.
So who's better? You, Will, kind of?
Oh, I'm better than I'm better than Will. Yeah.
Did y'all play the same position?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did. And we kind of had the same. He'll probably tell you that he shot a little better than me, and I was more of a good driver. But we played about the same spot.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were on the floor together most of the time, so it just worked out.
So growing up, I imagine there was some pretty competitive ball games in the backyard?
Yeah. Every day after school, probably one-on-one in the driveway.
So 70% win, 80% win, where would they come into? Or is this kind of even in the one-on-one battles?
It's probably even over the years. Yeah. Growing up, I mean, when he was older, he usually beat me more, so.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, it evened out.
Yeah. It has to be nice having a brother you can be competitive with like that. I mean, it'd be pretty cool growing up.
Yeah.
2 years apart?
Yeah, we're almost 2 years, so.
Oh, nice. And going to state tournament, that's a big deal in Kentucky.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was a really big deal. And we weren't supposed to that year, so it was a good run that we had. And it was good memories that I have with my brother and some other friends.
Yeah. Now, as you started, I guess, growing in your Christian faith, how did that journey look from the time you started to where you are today?
I mean, I grew up in a Christian household, so, I've always been at church on Sunday and stuff, but I don't think I ever took it as serious as I should until I started seeing things in my life changing as I got older and playing basketball. I mean, in high school, I went to church, but I was never like fully into it. I was kind of a lukewarm Christian, and I like to have fun on the weekends and do all that stuff. And then I'd say around the time I got to college, when I got to college, I was out on my own. I started really seeing that I needed God. I needed somebody bigger to rely on in my life, and I couldn't control it. I couldn't have it under my control and be okay.
Yes, I think it's phenomenal that you recognize that you can't control it without God.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of adults out there right now that are trying to fight this battle without Him, and they're losing, and they still can't recognize they can't do this without Him. So at the age of 20, pretty amazing that you've recognized that.
Yeah, no, bless.
Yeah. I guess, growing up it's interesting. You grow up in the church. And I heard a person say the other day, they look back, and this person was like 55 or 60 years old. He was talking about his kids, and he said the one thing that bothered him was that his kids, he raised the kids in the church, but he didn't raise them in Christ. Big difference. You go to church and you kind of, are you present really there? You're there, but are you there mentally kind of taking in, saying, hey, am I letting this stuff affect my life or not? And I think sometimes we see, especially when we're younger, it's like other things on our mind and we're not really putting the effort into it, and it affects our lives. But to recognize that, 20, that you're like, hey, I've got to make some changes. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, growing up on the weekends, like, you play AAU basketball a lot. I mean, I'd say that growing up, like, before it got really serious, we would always make time for church over basketball. But then, as we started having more success and we got better, we could see that, like, maybe we could go to college or something and get some scholarship money for just playing basketball. That's probably when we, if we had games on Sunday, we were going to the games and missing church. And, I didn't mind it at the time, but now I look back, like, I could have really used those Sundays in church.
It sets a precedent, doesn't it? You start looking at that. So, yeah, at 20, you're seeing that. So I wonder how to be when you start having kids one day. You're like, hey, this is great, but the priority is, church, or the
Yeah.
priority is this. I think it's a big decision. I think it's tough on parents, being a parent myself, when you have all these things in the world saying this, it's hard to be strong and say, hey, we're not playing on this day here. We need to be here and focused.
hmm Yeah, I mean, my parents, we all went growing up. I mean, I know my mom grew up in a Christian household too. So I
Hmm.
mean, they went. I think that was just something that they were just used to just going. And then like it wasn't until end of high school probably where I was like, okay, well, I need to go and actually listen and then actually apply those things to my life instead of just going, just checking the box off like, oh, we went to church today.
Yeah, I think you can look at if you look at kind of a straight line, see, am I participating? Am I involved? And you seeing how the faith works in your life, it
Mm,
makes a difference. And again, I can't applaud you enough for recognizing that at a young age. And I hope people are listening to this saying, that's part of the key. It's nice going to church. That's a first step. But if you're not participating in it, it's
yeah.
not really doing anything for your life.
Yeah, and something I've picked up recently is like just having the community around you. Like this past summer, I worked at camp for Southeast for a whole week down in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I mean it was a high school camp, and I was leading freshman boys and stuff like that. But then I realized that I met other leaders and other people that were my age that I really connected with, and like now I have a community with at Southeast. So like it's good to have that around. It keeps you more strong and wanting to go back and learn more and more.
Well, and again, another phenomenal point. I mean, you're hitting all the high points, is recognizing that your environment controls
Yeah.
so much of your care. And I think I think there's a Bible verse that talks about, don't be deceived.
Mhm.
Evil company will corrupt good behavior. And how do we make sure, if we surround ourselves with, good Christian character individuals, that only helps us. And I know there's a study out there that said you can tell someone's future by the people that they are friends with.
Right.
And so recognizing that is, I mean, it's just huge. You know, so I guess my first question is, where'd you get your basketball ability from, mom or dad?
I would say dad.
Oh,
I
okay,
think he was an athlete growing up, and he played football and basketball and stuff like that.
okay,
So
all
I
right,
would say from him.
all right. The second more important question is, so 20-year-old Tucker, I mean, you have all this information. I mean, great information. What would you tell 16-year-old Tucker right now? If you could go back and see 16-year-old Tucker, what would you tell him?
I mean, maybe I just tell him not to be deceived, and not to think things that aren't that important are really the most important things. I'd probably tell him just find out and learn what's really important. Try to figure out what's really important in your life and hold those things dearly, like family and God, and not so much of like basketball and your stats and stuff like that, or how many friends you got that are maybe not even your real friends.
Yeah, that's another very difficult thing to understand or even comprehend, is who is really your friend and who is just basically there for the highlights.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that you're just finishing up. You're still in the midst of your college basketball. It's still fresh, and you've recognized that. I tell them to go back and put more emphasis in
Right.
my Christian path,
Yeah.
which I think more people. I hope people are listening to this. I think that's so
Yeah.
profound, and people need to say it out loud. It's like, yeah, these sporting events are great, but it does nothing for my eternal life. And you can be an ambassador in sports and do things with it, but make sure we're on the right path and use sports for that direction. So, man, hats off to you.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember there was a lot of nights, especially in college, like in high school, I probably didn't have as many bad games as I did in college. It was easier and competition was great. And then when I got to college, I started having bad games, and I'm like 3.5 hours away from home. I'd come back to my apartment by myself and just be like, that's not fulfilling me. Like, even if I did play a good game, like that was like, okay, that was cool, but my family's not here to see it. And if I got like, and most of the time it was a bad game, and I'd be like, something was missing, and I would be feeling beaten down all the time and feeling like I'm not good enough. And like, it took me to realize that, that's not what matters. And when I found out what mattered, I didn't care about the bad games anymore. I knew it didn't matter.
Almost put things into a proper perspective. It's like you sit there and say, hey, these games they're fun, but it needs to be in a perspective like, hey, win or lose, did I try my best? Did I do these things? But in my ultimate goal of life with Jesus, it's minuscule.
Yeah, no. God didn't. Yeah, and I remember I saw a video one time that Wilson to me is just like, it just said, God does not care how good you are at basketball. You don't need to be good at basketball to get into heaven, because he knew that was something I was struggling with. Like I was finding my identity in that. And then when I started going downhill with that and I wasn't doing as good, I was like kind of lost in life. And
Mhm.
my brother kind of helped me show me the way. Like, no, like this is your identity. You're a son of God. Like, that's all that matters.
I do think that, it's one of those things where, I don't think Jesus, I never read anywhere where he's looking at your, field goal percentage or your, how many charges you took to get to heaven. I do think we're put in positions to, disciple people. And I think people do that. And I think that, especially with your talent and what I think you're in a great position to lead people. And so tell me about this thing you went to in Southeast. You said you went to Knoxville?
Yeah, it was their high school camp.
Okay.
Southeast Christian. I served with the Blake and Baker campus, and I did freshman boys, which, I mean, I had met the freshman guys that I was counseling like one time beforehand probably. But then, I came home for the summer and I was like, I'm probably not going to play basketball again. So I'll try to get involved and serve, and just like that could help other people. But that would really help me, and help me stay in my faith and grow every day. And I mean, the kids were good. I had really good kids, and they were open. Like, as the week went on, it was a week-long thing, and about like they didn't open up as much as at first, but then as you hang out for a couple of days or a week or so, they find that trust in you, and they start to open up about things, and you can help them because you've been there before.
Now, how did you get involved in that? Did you get asked? Did you volunteer?
Oh no, I volunteered.
Okay,
I volunteered, and I went. I had to do I did a couple lunches with some other leaders and to see if I would be a fit or whatnot, and then I met a guy that he has some sons and daughters that were that age, and he helped me get involved.
Yeah, I think another interesting point which you brought up is that it does take time to build a relationship. People kind of want it to be really quick and people to open up to you, and it takes a little time to get trust. And then when people do, it's like, man, you really can make a difference, and especially young people. I think that those high school men and women, boys and girls, young adults, that's such an influential group. And how do we get in touch with them? Because you think about it, that's a short time for you to go. It's like, how many things are coming at them, leading them astray, versus somebody coming to them saying, look, it's all false. They're selling you a wrong bill of goods. Please listen. What can I do to help you, understand this?
Yeah. Because I remember being in high school thinking I'm having fun, or even in college, the 2 years of college, or we win a game and I go back and I party with the guys, and we're convinced that we're having real fun. And it's temporarily fun, but like Satan just has people convinced that that's the way, and he's just lying to them. Like they're partying off a cliff, really.
Man, what a great analogy. Yeah, great analogy. Partying off a cliff. Yeah. So how do we get to those people? I know you get into a group. I mean, if you sit there and go, how do we make it? If you do, we can write a book and make $1 billion, because I don't think they figured out how to get to 14, 18-year-old boys and girls and saying, hey, it's a lie.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me really was, when I had people in my corner that were trying to tell me that's not the way, what you're doing is a little bit wrong. A part of me, wanted to look at them and be like, well, I mean, you don't really get it. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, or you think you're better than me, something like that. And, your pride comes out. And that's something that I really believe in, is the grace, because I had people like that in my life show me grace. And I really believe that, grace given is grace received. And as they showed me more grace and kept on loving me through all my hardships, eventually I was like, you know what, maybe that is the way to live, because they seem happy, and they seem like they got, a lot of stuff figured out, and they're all about just love and grace, and it's amazing. So then, so much of that pushed onto me in my life kind of turned me into how to see the light,
Mm-hmm.
And now it's something that I try to give to others, be understanding and loving no matter what.
Yeah, there's a big difference in that. We start talking about those fruits of the Spirit. You see joy and understanding. Joy is constant. Where like we talked earlier, it's like some things are just dependent on winning a game, losing the game. But when you really find that joy of that Spirit that living in you, then you can't change that. You just feel that way no matter what comes at you. You're feeling that peace. It's
that's probably what happened to me. I mean, when I really found God, it was late in college. It was my second semester of my sophomore year. So, and that was when I would have bad games, and I'd find myself on the bus, and I'd be like, you know what, like, this ain't even that bad. Like, 2 months ago, I would have been, mad at the world for playing bad, and now I realize that, it's not that important, we can just get on the bus and go home, and I can be around people that I love and just enjoy life, because the past doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, great perspective. So, kind of the whole purpose of our show here is we're trying to reach young adults and give them practical tools to battle these things we're talking about. So if you feel comfortable, is there one thing you're struggling with right now? in your life that you feel comfortable talking about that we can kind of dig into and see if there's anything that we can intentionally throw at it to kind of help you on this?
Definitely like, because recently in my life, I would say like some things have happened in my life where I like want to be bitter towards people or bitter about things and mad at the world. And I've had to like just try to find in my heart, to just give grace and forgive and see things for like, the way that they are and, just be an understanding person and not hold grudges or be bitter or something like that. That's something I struggle with. It's probably like just an anger towards the world that I deal with a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like not understanding why some things are the way they are.
Right.
And having to learn how to come to peace with that.
Yeah, I was, when you talk about forgiveness, I saw something the other day. It was a stat that said that this is a stat of Christians. It said that 1 in 4 Christians struggle with forgiveness. And that's from a group whose whole mission is about forgiveness. Like if you look at, when you start reading the Bible, and forgiveness is a big part of our requirement. I mean, God forgives us if we forgive others. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Because I would say, there were some times where I didn't want to give grace because I couldn't even give grace to myself about some things that I've done in my life that I knew that I've done. And I'd be in my head like, knowing that God forgives me. So why can't I forgive myself? And then on top of that, why can't I go and forgive others?
Mm-hmm.
If he wants me to love like he loves and live how he did, he says, forgive 7 times, 70 times. So you got to keep on forgiving and loving people. And eventually I think that's the best way to bring people to people that are struggling, to find their way. I think that's one of the best ways to do it is just continuously just show them love, and eventually they'll see it in you. And they'll be like, you know what, that might be the way to live because, Tucker's happy and he's being a nice guy.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, it's easy to say certain things, but forgiveness and loving, and that brings people closer to God than any other mission I think there is. But when you can forgive somebody and they know you forgave them, I don't know anything you could say that could help them more than showing that.
Right.
So,
and if you're somebody that you think, you feel bad for a way that you might have acted or did something to somebody, and I mean, when they come up to you and they say, you know what, I forgive you and I love you no matter what, like there's nothing like that's probably the best feeling in the world. And then you just want to, that puts that inside of you to make you want to act like that towards other people.
It's an interesting point because it's so odd is that, of course, I love the path my life is on. And nothing makes me happier when I get a text message from somebody says, "Hey, Gary, I think about you today and I'm praying for you." Mm-hmm. Or I did this and I want you to forgive me. But I'm having a hard time reciprocating. Like I have several groups that I kind of, leading some Bible studies and, for me to sit and take 2 seconds to say, "Hey guys, I'm praying for you today." For some reason, I don't know what's I know what I feel like when somebody sends me that note. So I'm like, is that the way we were raised as men? Like, hey, you can't show those kind of emotions, or if it's just Satan whispering in my ear saying, "You don't need to do that." I'm like, why? It means so much to me. Why am I not doing that?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably something I could, because my dad's a man's man and he's, I've probably seen him cry maybe twice in his entire life. And, we don't really show that side of ourselves a lot. And then I'd say when I went away to college, that was like the first time where I really saw my dad, texting you or be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, man. I hope you're okay. I love you. I'm praying for you," and like stuff like that. But it would be unheard of for my dad growing up. But then once I got out of the house and, I got far away from him and my brother and all of them, it is just like, those are my favorite type of texts to receive. And knowing that I might be hours away from my family, but they're thinking about me and they love me. It's good.
Yeah, I've got to start reciprocating that because I know how I feel, and now I'm talking to you. I know how you feel, so I really gotta. I think people need to hear that because it might be one day you're struggling with something like, "I'm right here. I'm just feeling like everything's going against me." Then all of a sudden you get a text from Gary saying, "Hey man, I thought about you today. I'm saying a quick prayer for you." You probably go, "Man, I needed that right now.
I'm not alone."
Yeah. I wonder why I can't do that. It's interesting. I think there's several people that I think struggle with that, and I think we need to get that word out. Say, hey, we all would love that vote of encouragement.
Everybody would love that.
Yeah. So this, I think it's great that we talked about the when Peter was he almost felt like he was almost bragging to Jesus when he said, "Hey, how many times am I supposed to forgive people? Mm-hmm. 7?" Because if I remember right, and I could be wrong on this, but I think in Hebrew custom, you forgave somebody 3 times, and then you could basically kick them out. Basically, I'm not doing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think he was kind of bragging. Jesus said, "Hey, I'm not 7 times, 7 times, 70 times." And I think that's that whole point of forgiveness isn't something you quantify. It's like that's in your heart, and you have that. And I think that was you see Peter always I think Peter was a competitive guy too. So he's always, yeah, I'll do 7. And
Right.
Jesus just put him right in his place. Not 7 times 70, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but it really is just something that's in your heart. If you've been forgiven, like we all have been by Jesus Christ, then you should want to, show that to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're not going to help people find the way by, just nagging on or going to church. Come on, what are you not going to church for? You're not living the right way. Instead, you just live like he did, and you'll show them, and they'll see by example, how you'll bear the fruits.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think people, if you show people more than telling them, because so many times when you just tell people and you're not showing them, I think it does more to hurt them sometimes, especially kids. And I know several of my friends that almost have a grudge against the church or against Jesus for something that their parents did. I'm thinking, wait, Jesus, don't blame Jesus for that. You got, maybe you didn't get the best, kickstart, but he's got arms wide open. So let's not blame Jesus for that stuff. Let's get in here and see what the real mission is.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. And usually I meet people like that I've invited to church that have had a bad experience. Once they come back and, they look at really just like the words and, like the facts of everything and what Christianity is really about, then they're like, oh yeah, like I just had a bad experience. Like it's because that's not God. It's not God when people who are, self-proclaimed Christians act a certain way and that, turns somebody off from the whole idea. Like that's just not how it is. Like, you got to come see for yourself and really learn about it.
Yeah, I think once people experience, I can speak for myself, but I do. I think once people really experience that love of Jesus Christ, you can't deny it. You're like, there's something that changed. Let me dig into this just a little bit deeper.
Yeah, no, it makes you feel like, no matter, because there used to be days where I'd wake up with, anxiety or, I'd be feeling bad at myself and it would last all day long. And then now I wake up and I'm like, Jesus Christ already died for me. Like, what, like, why would I waste a life that I've been given, to live? I can't do anything to you already won. So
yeah. Another good point. I think that's another thing Christians need to hear is we won the battle.
Yeah.
Now we got Satan. We're on enemy ground, and Satan's trying to distract us. We've won. Keep focused on that. Yeah, good point. We won the battle. Stay focused.
Yeah, like God's not asking you to get crucified like he did. He's just asking you to live like he did. Love, just love one another.
Yeah, he's not asking us to do something he wouldn't do for us, which I think is another good point. Yeah. So, the whole purpose of this podcast is, I think it's important to be intentional, but I think we need to give young adults something other. And I love Bible stories. I love sermons. I love Bible stories. But I think sometimes we need specific and be intentional about, hey, this thing I'm struggling with. So what can I do to battle this? And I think the first thing we need to always do is see, hey, did Jesus do anything while his time on earth? Did he give us an example specifically of battling this issue? And I think the first thing Jesus always showed us was, how we battle temptation is with the word of God, the sword of the Spirit. I mean, when the devil came at him, the first thing he said, for it is written. So one thing I think it's made a big impact on my life is if I'm struggling with a certain temptation, I find a Bible verse that basically is related to that. And I start saying it every day to remind myself that this temptation is coming and I need to battle. So I'm looking at forgiveness. And I always come into, I think it's Matthew 6 where he talks about, and I think we talked about earlier, it's like, if we don't forgive, then God's not forgiving us. And so something to remind ourselves every day is like, hey, I'm battling this forgiveness, but if I can't forgive, then, so I think, repeating that and remind ourselves, I think it's Matthew 6:31 and where he talks about, the Lord will forgive, but we're required to forgive as well. So I'd keep saying that. And then you ever seen those stories where, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it a bit, but where you'll have somebody like, I just saw one the other day. It was in, I think, 2016 where this person came into this Amish school and killed 5 people. Mm-hmm. And the first thing the Amish people did was said, hey, we need to pray for that person's family. We need to pray for that spouse and his father. And they're looking at, we forgive him. We know that he was a victim. We're forgiven. And I'm thinking, where do they get the power to forgive like that? I have a hard time forgiving when somebody cuts me off in the traffic, let alone somebody comes in and wipes out 5 kids. I'm like, where does that come from?
Yeah. I mean, you just got to, when things like that happen, where I've really found my forgiveness and like, to forgive people, I've always just tried to put myself in their shoes and, think about it from them and not be like so quick tempered, thinking about like, well, why would they act a certain way that they did? Or, they must have been fighting demons in their head too. Like, I mean, however people treat you is just how they feel about themselves is something I've really had to come to learn recently. And, instead of being mad about, them doing things to me, I just pray for them. And I feel sorry for them because they got to be dealing with things, because I know I've been there before too. And I've acted ways that I didn't want to act. And it was all just, it was my own fault, and things that I was dealing with myself. So, I mean, that's something that I've had to learn, and it makes it easier to forgive people, when you try to understand that, you're not the only one living this life, like they're dealing with things too.
I think there's another great point to bring across to especially new Christians is that, when God talked about, he put a spirit inside of us to help guide us. Mm-hmm. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of us. And I know there's a Bible verse that talks about, the unconditional love and the strength of the Holy Spirit. And one of the examples they talk about is when it's difficult to forgive somebody, when it's really significant, that spirit that lives inside of you will give you the strength to overcome that and forgive those people. So I think engaging the Holy Spirit in those forgiveness things is another tool we have as Christians, to basically to fight those temptations.
Yeah, I mean, there was things that had probably been done to me in my life where I would be like, I can never forgive somebody for that, or I'll never look at them the same. And then like the more that I started reading my word and getting more in tune with the Spirit, I started getting more powerful in that sense, and I started getting more forgiving. And now I look at things and I'm like, I totally forgive and love this person. And at one point in my life, I was thinking there's no way we could ever mend that relationship. And now it is. And that's not by me or anything. That's just the Spirit in me that's blessed me with that.
Oh man, love that answer. And I think it's also super interesting that every health study shows that people that are bitter and angry and resentful, it increases anxiety, stress level, they can't sleep. And you're thinking, in God's world where he made us, it's like all these things that he don't want you to do also makes you sick and all these illnesses. So it's like, what do you need to go, hey, maybe I need to tune into this a little bit?
Sheesh, I just think that the Spirit, once you get it, you just stop worrying about the things. Your anxiety isn't, it's in God's hand. You know he's going to take care of you. He never, leads you down a path where, to harm you. He's doing everything to all good things will work together for the greater good. And you just got to trust his plan and trust that, and stop trying to take it all on yourself to make your life better, because you can't do it.
Yeah. It's almost like the world tells us that, especially as I think young men, I spent 20 years in the military, and it seemed like the whole message was, be a man, do this, you don't need anybody. And that's exactly what Satan's whispering in your ear. Because as a man, I need somebody else more than anyone. I've got all this responsibility. If I don't have God's Spirit and his word working in me, then there's no way I can battle all this stuff that's going on.
Satan wants you to be alone. He wants you to sit in your room by yourself, beat up, and not trust anybody to talk about your problems, But when you find your community and you find people that love God and will continue to remind you of how loved you are by God, and then you'll really see it. That's when Satan will probably get mad. He'll probably start throwing more things your way at that point.
Yeah. I think you talk about I think it's interesting again how you look at predators on our planet, like a lion or alligators or anything that's a major predator. Their whole goal is to get you alone, to find the weakest moment, get you alone, and then they attack you. And that's exactly what Satan's refers to. It's like a roaring lion just searching for souls to devour. And if he can get you alone, say, hey, your mom and dad did this, you need to hate them, or your brother or sister did this, you need to separate them. And look at your churches doing it. If I get everybody who loves them out of the picture, then they're easy prey, it seems like.
Yeah, then you're sitting there in your room all alone, and you're vulnerable. And he starts attacking you, and that's when you start, giving into your anxiety or your depression or anything he's using to attack you.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you being on the show today, man. What a great talk.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So I think it's, as we talk about these different issues and we talk about these temptations, it's so important that we realize we're not the only one battling these things. And I think there is clear, specific guidance we have inside Scripture, inside our bodies, that God basically implanted inside our hearts and our souls to fight these temptations. We have to be intentional. We have to know what's coming at us and fight those battles. So thanks again for joining in. Hope you learned something.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. We hope you found a useful tactic you can apply to your own situation. We're building a community here. Your feedback is important. If you discovered an approach that works, make sure you comment below. The one thing we don't want to do is to keep that solution a secret. Understand there are people struggling and searching for an answer to a similar issue. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at the Applied Christianity Podcast. Looking forward to our next episode. Until then, remember, the Applied Christianity Podcast is about real solutions for real people.